Babe, you're here. Today's update is still about Wan Juan. Grab a seat and watch. There are always some people who you think you've completely gotten over just by deleting their contact info, until the cat they raised leaps over the balcony and breaks into your apartment. That's when it hit me. My door code is still his birthday. Hi, I'm your new neighbor. Sorry to bother you. I slam the door shut. The heavy security door shuts them out. The person outside is clearly stunned for a second. Then their footsteps slowly fade away. My heart is pounding out of my chest. My mind is a total mess. No way. There's no way it's this much of a coincidence. This neighborhood, this city, were all carefully chosen by me. It's a whopping 40 kilometers away from his workplace. It takes 3 transfers on the subway and bus, plus an 800-meter walk to get here. It's just a remote, quiet resettlement area. I went through all this trouble to move here, just to avoid him. My phone screen silently lights up. My WeChat contact list is already completely empty. I just wiped it clean yesterday, deleting him on WeChat, unfollowing all his socials, and blocking his short video accounts. Even the penguin plushie he gave me 3 years ago was heartlessly thrown into the trash. I curl up, crouching by the door. I peek outside through the peephole. The hallway is empty, not a soul in sight. The door next door is tightly shut. At the doorstep sits a pot of pothos with slightly withered leaves. The person who just came is her, Shuzixia, my ex-girlfriend. It has been exactly 123 days since we broke up. Day after day, I count the days we've been apart. Suddenly, my phone starts ringing. The caller ID says, "Ma, are you settling into your new place?" "Yeah, everything's fine." "How are the neighbors?" My throat tightens slightly. I reply in a low voice, "I haven't run into any of them yet." After hanging up, I collapse onto the couch, completely drained. I stare blankly at the ceiling and wall. A long, narrow crack winds across it, stretching all the way from the living room to the balcony. It looks just like a scar that will never heal. 10 minutes later, a faint rustling sound comes from the balcony, a soft, scratching noise, like a small animal moving around. I slide open the glass balcony door. An orange cat is crouching right under the drying rack, with one of my socks clamped in its mouth. The orange cat looks up at me and lets out a lazy meow, wagging its tail freely. It looks pretty smug. Then, Shu Jixia's voice calls out from the next balcony. "Nian Gao, Nian Gao, where did you go?" Instinctively, I reach out, wanting to hand the cat back to her, but my arm freezes halfway in the air. The divider fence between our balconies is only 1-2 meters high. If she stands on her tiptoes, just a bit, she can clearly see everything on my side. I gently place the orange cat on top of the railing, then turn around and hurry back inside. I shut the door tightly and pull the blackout curtains. My heart rate suddenly skyrockets. The next morning at 7:00 a.m., I leave for work, right on time. A delicious aroma wafts through the hallway, a mix of fried eggs and toast, with a subtle hint of a burnt smell. She was always terrible at timing her cooking. This little flaw never changed during the 3 years we were together. I instinctively pick up my pace and head for the elevator. Suddenly, I hear a door opening behind me. Fortunately, the elevator doors close just in time, cutting off the sound. Leaning against the elevator wall, I close my eyes and slowly try to calm my mind. I am not avoiding her on purpose. I really never planned to dodge her. But at the end of the day, deep down, I still instinctively ran away. Once I get to the office, my coworker Old Liu hands me a warm coffee. "You look terrible. Didn't sleep well last night. Still not adjusted to the new place." "Yeah. Hey, don't just give me one-word answers. You sound like a broken record." Old Liu leans in closer and lowers his voice. "Let me tell you something. It's about your ex. Don't bring her up again." "Hold on, don't cut me off just yet. Let me finish." "Old Liu," I say, staring straight at him. "I deleted all her contact info, moved to a completely new place, and even changed my usual gym and breakfast spots. I did all that to cut ties with her completely. If you still consider me a friend, never mention her to me again." Old Liu opens his mouth to speak, but the words stay on the tip of his tongue, and he quietly swallows them back down. His expression looks off, like he's dying to say something but holding back. But I don't pay much attention to it. In the evening, I head home from work. There's a tote bag sitting at my doorstep. Inside are 2 tangerines, along with a handwritten note. The note reads, "Hi neighbor. Sorry I couldn't say hi properly when we first ran into each other. Here's a little something as a small gesture. From Resident 602, the handwriting is neat and tidy. Totally different from her usual messy, casual scrawly. Her handwriting was always super crooked. I know that better than anyone." I stare at the note, lost in thought for a long time. First, I put the tangerines in the fridge and toss the note into the trash. A moment later, I feel bad and fish it back out. After debating back and forth, I finally tuck it safely away in a drawer in the shoe cabinet. There's another sound from the balcony. That orange cat, Nian Zhao, has snuck over again. This time it's holding a charging cable in its mouth. Looking closely, I see it's a lightning cable for iPhones. I'm an Android user, while she has always used Apple devices. I place the cable on the balcony divider. The cat gives me a look and reluctantly grabs the cable to head back. Before closing the balcony door, I faintly hear her speaking next door. "Nian Zhao, stop taking other people's things. How many times have I told you?" Her voice sounds much lower now compared to 3 years ago. She's intentionally keeping her voice down, afraid of disturbing anyone. She used to speak so brightly and loudly, the entire dorm building could hear her. I firmly shut the balcony door. On my 4th day here, I realize something. She has already found a new job nearby. During the morning rush hour, we accidentally end up in the same elevator. The elevator doors slowly slide open. She's standing near the back, holding a canvas tote bag with a Shiba Inu print. The moment our eyes meet, the air instantly freezes. She's the first to break the silence. "Good morning." "Good morning." Inside the elevator, there's also an elderly resident staring down at his phone. Going down from the 14th floor to the first E takes just about 40 seconds. My eyes are glued to the changing floor numbers. 12, 11, 10. We stand on opposite sides of the elevator, with the phone-gazing old man between us. Neither of us says another word. In the dead silence, you can even hear the faint whirring of the elevator cables. "Go, how have you been lately?" Just as she starts to speak, the elevator dings. The doors slide open. I walk straight out and never look back. By the time I walk out the front gate, my back is completely drenched in cold sweat. My phone buzzes with a notification. It's a text from Old Liu. "Old Liu, bro, I should probably clarify what I was trying to say yesterday. Your ex actually quit her old job. I heard she's not doing so well physically, but nobody knows the exact details." I stare at the text for a long time, then close the chat. Not doing well. What's actually wrong with her? But we have absolutely nothing to do with each other anymore. After all, she was the one who abruptly brought up breaking up one night, 4 months ago. The steaming hot pot was bubbling away. "Gu, Ching, let's call it quits." Her sudden words of breakup stabbed right through my heart like a blade. By the time I snapped out of it, my entire world was filled with pain. I desperately demanded an explanation. She replied nonchalantly, "No real reason. I just don't want to be in this relationship anymore." Over and over, I asked her why. Following the habit I once taught her, she swirled the beef tripe in the pot for exactly 7 seconds and placed it into her bowl. "Gu Ching, stop asking. If I don't get an answer, I'll never be able to let this go." The corner of her mouth quirked up slightly. "Then just bury it deep down inside." We never finished that hot pot in peace. Walking out of the restaurant, the summer night in Chongqing felt suffocatingly hot and oppressive. I stood by the curb and smoked half a pack of cigarettes, watching her in her long white dress walk into the subway entrance. The bustling crowd quickly swallowed her up. After that, I sent 37 messages in a row and made 12 phone calls. All I got back were read receipts with no reply and unanswered rings. As I drafted the 38th message, I hesitated before deleting the whole thing. I finally made up my mind and completely wiped out all her contact info. From that day on, I silently counted the days we've been apart. Today is day 127. When night falls and I get back to my place, the sound of coughing echoes intermittently from next door. It doesn't sound like a regular cold. A heavy, muffled cough keeps coming. lasting from 9:00 p.m. all the way to 11:00 p.m. I lie in bed, burying my head under the blankets, constantly telling myself that none of this is my business. On my 7th day here, the orange cat, Nian Jiao, visits again. This time, it didn't bring anything in its mouth. The little guy was completely curled up in the corner of the balcony, letting out quiet, soft whimpering meows. He had lost all his usual energy. Honestly, it really sounded like a cry for help. I knelt down and gently stroked his head. I could clearly feel that his nose was completely dry and burning hot. When a cat gets like this, it usually means they're not feeling well. After hesitating for a moment, I picked him up, went over to next door and knocked. There was no answer for the longest time. I knocked 3 more times in a row. The door finally cracked open, and Su Zixia's face came into view. My heart skipped a beat. She had lost a lot of weight, and it wasn't from a healthy diet either. Her cheeks were completely sunken, her cheekbones painfully prominent, and her jawline looked incredibly frail. Heavy dark circles weighed under her eyes, and even her lips looked completely pale. Nian Gao doesn't look so good. I handed the cat over to her. She reached out and took him, keeping her head down as she mumbled, "Thanks for your help. His nose is burning hot. You should get him checked out ASAP. I know. Turn left at the south gate. There's a 24-hour vet clinic right there." "Yeah, I know where it is." As soon as she said that, she started closing the door. A million thoughts rushed to my head, but all I could manage to say was, "Take care of yourself too." The door clicked shut. Standing there in the hallway, I felt completely pathetic and out of place. Back in my apartment, I debated with myself for a long time, before finally texting old Lao. "You said earlier that she's sick. What exactly does she have?" "Old Liu, wait, didn't you ban me from bringing her up? Just tell me the truth." "Old Liu? Honestly, I don't know the exact details. But someone in the class group mentioned her hospital checkup results came back bad. She hasn't said a single thing about it to anyone. What on earth is wrong with her?" "Old Liu, no one knows for sure. Since you cut off so many people back then, maybe try asking our mutual friends." Under the desk lamp, I flipped my phone face down. All those mutual friends we used to have were long gone when I wiped my contacts after the breakup. I couldn't sleep a wink that night. At 2:00 a.m., the coughing from next door started up again. It sounded way more painful and heavier than before. I got up and poured a glass of warm water. I walked out to the entryway and opened the front door. I placed the glass right outside door 602, but after hesitating, I brought the glass back inside. She always preferred warm water, and never touched anything cold. I adjusted the temperature perfectly, poured it into a thermos, and placed it outside her door again. I gave a quick knock, and immediately dashed back inside. Peeking through the peephole, I saw her open the door and spot the thermos. She froze for a few seconds before bending down to pick it up. She stood at the doorway, looking over toward my door. The peephole's view was so narrow that I couldn't tell if she knew I was watching. As she went back inside with the thermos, I slowly pulled away from the door. On the 10th day, I ran into her by the smart lockers. She was struggling hard with a huge package. She couldn't even budget on her own. After trying twice, the box didn't move an inch. She leaned against the locker, catching her breath. I stepped up, easily lifting the box with one hand. "Which floor?" Even though I knew the answer, I still asked. She looked up at me, a slight smile forming on her lips. "The 6th floor, you already know that. I'm just being a good neighbor." She let out a soft laugh. It wasn't as bright as it used to be, but it was still genuinely beautiful. Inside the elevator, I held the heavy box, while she stood quietly beside me. The package was incredibly heavy. The shipping label said medical equipment, with a specific hospital address. I deliberately pretended not to notice. "Gu Xing," she suddenly called my name. "Did you move into this complex on purpose? You're overthinking it." "This place. I signed the lease back in March." That part was actually true. Lease signed in March, breakup in April, and I didn't officially move in until June. She nodded softly. "I guess it really is just a coincidence." "Yeah, total coincidence." We reached the 6th floor, and I set the package gently by her door. "Aren't you curious about what's inside?" She looked up and asked. "Not really interested." "Liar. What makes you think I'm lying? You literally stared at the shipping label 3 times." I was instantly left speechless. She knelt down to open the cardboard box. I didn't leave right away, staying to quietly watch from the side. Inside the box was a compact, white household oxygen machine. It looked lightweight and compact. "What did you buy this for?" The question slipped out before I could stop myself. She pulled the machine out, her tone completely calm. "To use while sleeping at night. It helps me breathe a bit easier." I reached out to help her carry the machine inside. The moment I stepped into the living room, I saw everything. The coffee table was covered in all kinds of medicine. Bottles of all sizes were lined up in a neat row. On the wall, a sheet of white paper was taped up, filled with a detailed daily schedule for her meds. There were even several medical reports pinned to the fridge. With a quick glance, I caught words like follow-up and re-examination. Noticing where I was looking, she quickly stepped forward, grabbed the papers, folded them up neatly and hid them in a drawer. "It's just some lingering side effects from a bad cold. It's nothing serious," she explained softly. I stared at her intensely. She had clearly lost so much weight, easily down at least 15 pounds. Her wrist was so tiny, I could easily wrap one hand around it, and there were faint bruise marks on the back of her hand from IV needles. There was no way a simple cold could do this to someone. "Shujixia, tell me the truth. What is actually going on with your health?" She turned her back to me to organize the oxygen tubes, and said slowly, "Guqing, we broke up a long time ago." Those few words felt like a massive brick wall, shutting down every question I wanted to ask. "Thanks for helping with the box." She opened the front door, a polite yet distant smile on her face. "Go get some rest, neighbor." I walked out of her apartment, and the door slowly closed behind me. On the door of 602, there was a housewarming card from property management. It had a simple note: "Welcome, new resident." Those 3 simple words sent my mind spinning. I stood frozen in the hallway for ages, while the motion sensor light outside kept turning on and off, flashing over and over again. On my 12th night here, I finally couldn't take it anymore. I logged into an old unused burner account and looked up my old college class group chat. The group name was still English Class 152, Forever Family. I had left the group almost 6 months ago, but after submitting a request to rejoin, our class rep, Li Mu, approved it immediately without asking questions. I slowly scrolled through the old chat history. Most of it was just typical casual banter. People sharing shopping links, posting selfies, or planning group dinners. Until a message from a few months back caught my eye. It was sent by our classmate, Zhou Ying. "Zhou Ying, does anyone know what's up with Xu Jixia lately? I ran into her on the hematology floor at the hospital today. I called out to her, but she didn't even respond. She looked absolutely terrible." A few replies popped up right under it. "Wang Hao. No way. Is she seriously sick?" "Zhao Ying. I don't know the specifics." I tried to catch up to her, but she vanished. "Li Mu, at Shujixia, are you okay?" After that, tag was sent. Shujixia never replied. I kept scrolling through the logs. 2 weeks later, the topic came up again. Zhou Ying. I asked her old roommate, where does she quit her job to focus completely on recovering? She specifically asked everyone to keep it a secret, so nobody actually knows what she has. Li Mu, this is really worrying. Should we all go visit her together? Zhao Ying, she already moved out. No one knows her current address. And just like that, the conversation died. No one ever brought it up again. The word hematology kept repeating in my head, sending a wave of bitter pain through my chest. I immediately pulled up a browser and searched for diseases treated in hematology departments. Seeing the search results pop up felt like a bucket of ice water being poured over me. Anemia, leukemia, lymphoma, myelodysplastic syndromes. Everything I read made my heart drop. My fingertips couldn't stop trembling. Next, I searched for blood disorders and oxygen machines. More results flooded the screen. Shortness of breath after chemo, anemia-induced hypoxia. Every single word cut straight to my soul. I slumped onto the living room floor, leaning my back against the couch, the dim glow of the phone reflecting on my face. I thought back to the night we broke up, inside that hot pot restaurant. She had simply said there was no reason. Now I finally understood the painful truth behind it. At 3, the faint, Raspy coughing started up again next door. The muffled coughing mixed with rapid, heavy breathing was absolute torture to listen to. Before long, the low hum of the oxygen concentrator echoed from inside. Only then did her coughing slowly start to settle down. I leaned my forehead against the ice-cold security door, my mind a complete mess of unspeakable emotions. Shu, Jixia, are you seriously ill? Was that the real reason you broke up with me back then? Did you really think keeping everything from me would magically spare me the pain? You're just too damn stubborn. On day 13, I took a half day off work. While digging through my moving boxes, I managed to dig up an old unused phone. Inside, I found the contact info for Shu Jixia's college roommate, Lin Ran. It only rang 3 times before she picked up. Hello, who's this? Lin Ran asked. It's Gu Qing. Dead silence on the other end for 5 solid seconds. So, you found out. My heart instantly dropped to my stomach. I tried my best to keep my voice steady, but even I could hear how forced it sounded. Found out what? If you were totally clueless, you wouldn't have called me out of the blue. Lin Ran let out a soft sigh. Jixia begged me over and over not to tell you. What exactly is she hiding from me? After a brief silence, the truth finally came out. She was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. They found it at the end of last year. At the end of last year, we were still happily together. Ever since her diagnosis, she'd been carrying this heavy burden entirely on her own. She tried so many different types of medications, but none of them really worked. The doctor's recommendation is that she'll most likely need a bone marrow transplant soon. A bone marrow transplant. It's just her and her mom. Her mom wasn't a match, so they've been searching the bone marrow registry for a suitable donor, but they haven't found a perfect match yet. How is her condition right now? She's relying on meds to stay stable. Her health fluctuates a lot. Last month's checkup was relatively stable, but the doctor warned her not to let her guard down. Lin Ran paused for a second. She quit her job because she physically couldn't handle it anymore. Her old place was too far from the hospital, which is why she moved out there, to be closer to the hospital. I finished her sentence. I checked the map earlier. Just 3 kilometers north of this complex is a specialized hematology hospital. So her moving here wasn't a coincidence at all. I was the accidental intruder all along. Gu Qing, Lin Ran lowered her voice. The only reason she insisted on breaking up with you was because of this illness. She didn't know how much time she had left, and she didn't want to drag you down. She actually said that before. What did she say? She said, you deserve a healthy girl to live a peaceful life with, instead of wasting your time on someone as sick as her and ruining your future. I gripped my phone so tight my knuckles turned completely white. Please don't tell her I called you. I won't say a word. But, Gu Qing, what are your plans now? After hanging up, I sat on the steps outside my office and lit a cigarette. It burned halfway down and just went out on its own. I suddenly remembered how she used to hate me smoking, always complaining about the pungent smell, even though we've been apart for so long. Those old habits are still deeply ingrained in my bones. I immediately looked up aplastic anemia, bone marrow transplants, and donor screening. After spending an hour deep diving into medical articles and clinical treatment options, my mind was totally made up. That same afternoon, I headed straight to the hematology hospital and registered at the outpatient clinic. Doctor, I want to register as a bone marrow donor and request a targeted match screening for a specific patient. What is your relationship to the patient? I hesitated for a split second, then answered, family. The screening required drawing blood, and the final results would take 2 to 3 weeks. While waiting for the results, I quietly started doing a few things. First, every single morning, I'd secretly leave breakfast right outside her door. Steamed buns, soy milk, multigrain porridge, and egg pancakes. I'd rotate them every day. No notes, no knocking. I'd just drop off the food and walk away. On the first day, the breakfast sat there for 2 hours. Through the peephole, I saw her peek out, look around, and bring the food inside. On the second day, the wait dropped to an hour and a half. On the third day, it only took 40 minutes. By the 7th day, the door swung open right after I set the food down. Gu Qing. I froze in my tracks. not turning around immediately. You don't need to go through all this trouble. I just left it in a public hallway. It has nothing to do with you. Whether you take it or not is entirely up to you. She let out a helpless laugh. It's literally sitting at my doorstep. How am I supposed to just ignore it? Just treat it as a friendly, neighborly gesture. What kind of casual neighbor remembers that I only like savory soy milk and absolutely hate sweet soy milk? I slowly turned around. She was wearing a simple gray hoodie, her hair tied up in a messy bun. She still looked a bit pale, but way better than she did a couple of weeks ago. You've lost a lot of weight, I said softly. So have you, she replied quietly. We stared at each other in silence for a moment. I'll keep bringing your breakfast from now on. With that, I turned around and headed back to my place. The second thing I did was properly seal up the gaps in the balcony divider, and I even installed a little pet door. This made it super easy for Nian Zhao to come and go, without having to risk jumping over the railing. When the little guy first discovered the new door, he got so hyped, running back and forth through it, watching the playful cat from her balcony next door. Xu Jixia couldn't help but laugh, which triggered her body into a few soft coughs. The third thing I did was learn how to cook, starting tomorrow. She used to handle most of our meals back then. Her cooking wasn't Michelin star level, but it always felt incredibly homey and comforting. For the 4 months after we broke up, I practically lived on takeout. My stomach was totally wrecked. Now that I was making home-cooked meals, I'd purposefully make an extra portion, pack it in a container, and leave it outside her door. Braised pork ribs, tomato scrambled eggs, cola chicken wings, steamed sea bass. I made all her absolute favorite dishes. She never rejected them. She'd always wash the containers completely clean and leave them right outside my door. One time, when I went to fetch the container, there was a piece of chocolate sitting inside. It was my absolute favorite 72% dark chocolatey. Rich, smooth, and slightly bitter. I sat on the balcony with the chocolate melting in my mouth, while Nian Gao purred loudly on my lap. The lights were bright in her apartment next door, and her curtains weren't fully drawn. She was sitting peacefully on the couch, reading a book, with the oxygen tubes hooked around her ears. A faint mist slowly drifted into the air. The exact moment she turned a page, she suddenly glanced over toward the balcony. I didn't try to hide. I just openly locked eyes with her from afar, separated by 2 layers of glass and a low divider. Our eyes met for a few seconds. Then she looked back down at her book, but a soft smile quietly spread across her face. On the 20th day, the hospital called Rai on schedule. Hello, is this Mr. Gu Qing? Your bone marrow matching report has been issued. Instinctively, I gripped my phone tightly, my nerves completely on edge. Please, tell me, how is the match with the patient, Xu Zixia? Out of 6 testing loci, 4 of them are a successful match. With this result, can we proceed with the transplant? A 4 loci match is a haploidentical match, which absolutely meets the conditions for a transplant. However, compared to a perfect match, the risk of post-op GVHD is higher, and the recovery period will be longer. But haploidentical transplant technology is very mature now. The success rate is generally around 60 to 70. A 60% to 70% success rate was more than enough to give me hope. I agreed to proceed with the donation surgery. Are you sure you don't want to think it over more carefully? A bone marrow donation does have some impact on your body. No need to think it over. I am ready to cooperate with the surgical schedule anytime. We will coordinate with the patient's primary doctor to draft a plan and get back to you with the details. Also, according to protocol, we need to confirm consent with the patient herself. I'm begging you, please don't tell her about this just yet. But it's a strict requirement in our medical process. Doctor, please keep it a secret for now. Let the medical team finalize the transplant plan first, and I'll explain everything to her myself later. After a brief silence, the doctor finally agreed, adding that, within 2 weeks, max, they absolutely must confirm the patient's intent. After hanging up, I stood on the roof of the high-rise building. As the howling evening wind whipped against my face, my eyes started stinging with tears. When I got home that evening, I cooked dinner, just like any other day. Today, I made her absolute favorite, Sichuan fish with pickled greens. She was obsessed with this dish back in college, eating it multiple times a week, until even the cafeteria ladies knew her by heart. I packed the containers neatly, gently knocked on her door, and was just about to turn and leave, when the door suddenly swung open. Shudzixia was standing right at the doorway. Her eyes were completely red, holding back pure emotion. "What's wrong?" My heart instantly tightened. "Nothing," she said, looking down at the container. She sniffled slightly. "Fish with pickled greens? Yehi? Since when did you learn how to make this?" I looked up a recipe online. "You used to mess up even instant ramen." "Well, everyone's gotta grow up eventually." She bit her lip, then spoke softly. "Guqing, do you want to come in for a bit?" I just quietly stared at her. "Just for a second," she added. "Nian Gao misses you too." Right then, the cat was chilling by her feet, not even glancing my way, totally focused on licking his paws. I took a step and walked inside. The living room looked way cleaner than my last visit. The pill bottles on the coffee table were lined up neatly. Her daily med schedule was still taped to the wall. Next to it was a new calendar, with several dates circled in red ink, marked with checkup, get lab reports, and get meds from Lynn. The closest follow-up apt was the day after tomorrow. "You have a checkup the day after tomorrow?" I asked, pretending it was just casual. "Yeah." She set the fish on the table and brought out 2 sets of utensils. "Let's eat together." We sat across from each other at the table and ate in silence. This was our first time sharing a meal since the breakup. The last time we actually ate together was that unfinished hot pot. "This is really good," she said, picking up a piece of fish. "Better than the campus cafeteria." "Obviously, it's just a tiny bit too salty. Have your tastes changed?" Her chopsticks paused slightly. "The doctor told me to cut back on salt." I quietly stuffed rice into my mouth, pretending that didn't completely hit a nerve. "Guqing? Yeah, huh? Why exactly did you move out here?" "The rent is cheap." "The rent in this area isn't really any cheaper than your old place." "Then I guess it's just fate." She set down her chopsticks and looked at me with pure seriousness. "Do you already know something?" I looked up, locking eyes with her. It had been forever since I'd been this close to her. Her eyes were still dark and piercing, clear as crystal beads, but deep down they were swimming with exhaustion, stubbornness, and a trace of an emotion I couldn't read. "I know you don't drink sweet soy milk. I know you love pickled green fish, and I can hear you coughing every night," I said slowly. "Does that count as knowing something?" Her guarded expression softened a bit. "Aside from that, I shouldn't know anything else." She stared at me for 5 solid seconds, then finally looked down to keep eating. "The fish really is amazing," she mumbled. Nian Gao suddenly hopped onto the dining table, leaning in to sniff the fish. She immediately scooped him up and set him on the floor. "Cats can't have too much salt. If it's too salty, why are you inhaling it?" I never said it wasn't good. I'm just stating facts. We just kept chatting about random little things, peacefully finishing our dinner. The vibe was so comfortable, like we were back to 3 years ago, living together every single night. While washing dishes after dinner, she stood right next to me, drying the plates. We were so close I could totally catch her scent. It wasn't her usual perfume anymore, just the clean scent of laundry detergent. Fresh and gentle. "Guqing, hey, thank you." "For what?" "Thanks for pretending you didn't know anything." My hands froze mid-wash. "Though your acting is honestly tragic." She put the dry dishes into the cabinet. "You secretly looked up my illness, didn't you? You forgot to clear your search history when you helped with the oxygen machine. You left your phone in my room for 5 minutes. I saw everything." I stumbled over my words, totally defenseless. "Dozens of articles on bone marrow donation. You read every single one." Her tone was totally flat, like she was talking about someone else. "Stop doing stupid things like that." "What stupid things?" "You know exactly what I mean." I turned off the faucet and wiped my hands on my apron. Her little rubber duck apron, to be exact. "Siu, Chexia, Shao Shai. Whatever I decide, you don't get to stop me." "But I know we broke up, but I live in 601, and you're in 602. I'm literally your neighbor." Neighbors looking out for each other is completely normal. She stared at me, her lips trembling slightly. "You should go back." She turned around. "It's getting late." I walked over to the door and looked back at her one last time. Her back was toward me, leaning heavily against the sink. her shoulders shaking slightly. Night. Good night. Her voice sounded completely muffled. Right as the door clicked shut, I could faintly hear a soft sob coming from inside the room. Nian Gao poked his head through the door gap and let out a tiny meow. I knelt down, sliding my finger through the crack. The little guy immediately rubbed his fluffy head right against my fingertip. Keep a close eye on her for me, I whispered softly. And just like that, the checkup day arrived. I'm sharp. I was already waiting downstairs. She was clearly caught off guard when she saw me. What are you doing here? It's on my way. I jangled my car keys. I have some errands to run over there anyway. She didn't push it any further and quietly hopped into the passenger seat. The hospital was only 3 kilometers away. An easy 8-minute drive. Nian Gao spent the whole ride pacing around the back seat. She always brought the cat along, claiming that the moment she left, Nian Gao would completely trash the apartment. Once we parked at the hospital, I was going to wait for her in a car. Should I come up too? Leaning down, she peered through the car window. Go ahead, I'll take care of my stuff and pick you up when you're done. Gu Ching, you don't have any errands around here at all. How do you know? Because your navigation screen is literally set to this hospital. I was instantly left speechless. She flashed a subtle smile, snatched my car keys right out of the ignition, and said, let's go, come up with me. The hematology clinic was on the 5th floor. The entire hallway was completely thick with the smell of disinfectant. Some patients were walking slowly with their IV poles, while others chilled on benches with their eyes closed. It was painfully obvious that Xu Jixia knew this place inside out. The nurses at the station recognized her and instantly greeted her. I just quietly followed behind her, feeling like a total outsider. Blood draws, waiting for reports, consultations. She had every single step down to a science. She knew exactly which window to go to, which nurse to find, and exactly how long it would take while waiting for the results. She sat down on a hallway bench. I just stood right next to her. Sit down, she said, patting the empty spot next to her. I slid into the seat. Did you secretly go and do a bone marrow match screening? The air instantly turned dead silent. I didn't say a word. Gu Qing, I'm talking to you. Yeah. How did the results look? Out of 6, low-key. 4 are a match. A partial match. She slowly closed her eyes, leaning her head back against the bench. You shouldn't have gotten tested at all. Why not? Because I won't accept your donation. Why the hell not? Because we are broken up. Shao, Yi. Can you stop using the breakup as an excuse for everything? I lowered my voice, mindful of the other patients around us. When you broke up with me back then, it was purely because you were sick, right? She stayed dead silent, offering no response. Diagnosed at the end of last year, and breaking things off with me in April, for 4 whole months. You carried this heavy burden entirely on your own. She still didn't say a single word. Did you seriously think that keeping me in the dark and quietly vanishing from my life would make me forget about you? But you literally wiped out all my contact info back then. She opened her eyes. Weren't you trying to completely move on from me? Move on from what? My voice accidentally spiked, causing several people around us to stare. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Chu Zi. My phone passcode is ICC. Still your birthday. That jar of chili sauce you made is still in my fridge. Even though it expired like 6 months ago, I forgot to throw it away, to be honest. The only photo I packed when I moved was that picture from junior year, the one where your hair was blowing all over the track. I forced myself to delete all your contact info, only for you to end up living right next door. Do you have any idea what went through my head when I saw you standing at my doorstep that day? What was it? Her voice cracked, completely raspy. I just felt like the universe finally treated me right for once. Her eyes instantly welled up with tears. Gu Qing, you have no idea how serious this illness actually is. I looked up everything. Aplastic anemia. The 5-year survival rate for severe cases is over 70, and the cure rate is even higher after a transplant. Even with a haploidentical transplant, despite the higher rejection risk, the medical technology is already super mature. There are thousands of successful surgeries out there to prove IT. She just stared at me blankly. I actually know way more details about this than you think. I kept talking. Bone marrow donation barely does any damage to the body. You recover after just 2 or 3 weeks of rest, compared to when you stayed with me for my appendectomy. This is literally nothing. But it's completely different. How is it different? You had surgery because your body absolutely needed it. But you're doing this completely out of nowhere for no reason. Right now, I absolutely have to do this too. She bit her lip hard, and tears finally rolled down her cheeks. I didn't reach out to wipe them away. I knew she never liked anyone seeing her crying like this. I turned my head toward the window at the end of the hallway. Outside, autumn was in full swing. Most of the leaves had already turned a dry golden yellow. 4 months ago, you asked me why I wanted to break up. Her voice was so soft, it was almost a whisper. I said there was no reason. I lied to you, but I already figured it out. I was just terrified that if you knew the truth, you'd regret doing something reckless. See? You totally called it. She laughed through her tears. I slowly reached out my hand. She hesitated for a couple of seconds, but finally placed her hand in my palm. Her fingertips were ice cold and frail, so fragile it felt like they'd snap under the slightest pressure. I gripped them tight with all my strength. Soon, the lab reports were delivered. Her primary doctor, Dr. Zhou, was in his 40s, wearing wire-rimmed glasses. With a calm and serious expression, Su Zixia, your routine blood panel looks better than last month. Your hemoglobin went up from 68 to 74, and your platelets are making a slight recovery too. The medication is finally kicking in, but it's still nowhere near enough. Su Zixia nodded softly. Dr. Zhou turned his head to look at me, asking, curiously, "Is this your neighbor?" She beat me to it, speaking up first. "I'm her ex-boyfriend," I corrected, interjecting. Dr. Zhou adjusted his glasses, looking like he completely understood the situation. I already finished my bone marrow matching screen, and 4 of our loci are a match. Staring straight at the doctor, I said, "I'm totally down to donate my bone marrow to her." Dr. Zhou looked back and forth between us, and said slowly, "A haploidentical transplant is definitely an option. But right now, we can still manage her condition with meds. There's no need to rush into surgery just yet. If the medication keeps working well, we can just stick to conservative treatment. But if her numbers start fluctuating or get worse, we can activate the transplant plan right away." So, what's the game plan for now? We'll continue with the medication regimen and do regular follow-ups. We'll keep your donor matching file on record, just in case. Dr. Zhao closed the medical chart. Keeping a positive mindset is super key. Your complexion looks way better today compared to before. Su Zixia gave a small smile. Must be because I've been eating right lately. Keeping up with nutrition clearly shows immediate results. The doctor's gaze swept over to me, his words carrying a hidden meaning. Just keep doing exactly what you're doing. Walking out of the consultation room, she walked ahead of me, and I quietly followed right behind her. The hallway was packed with people moving back and forth. Some were quietly sobbing. Others were talking on their phones. While people pushing wheelchairs hurried past, she suddenly stopped in her tracks, turned around, and looked at me. "Gu Qing, everything you just said back there in the hallway, was it actually true? You can go verify that expired chili jar in my fridge anytime." Her nose crinkled slightly as she spoke. "That's not what I meant." "Then what are you talking about?" "You said the universe finally did something right. Yeah, so in your eyes, me moving next door counts as a blessing. It's not just a regular stroke of luck. It's literally the best thing that's ever happened to me." She lowered her head, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Inside her arms, Nian Jiao squirmed restlessly, letting out an endless string of tiny meows. I reached out to take the cat from her. Freeing up her hands, she gently wiped her cheeks, then reached out and lightly tapped my shoulder. "Stop saying such sappy things in a hospital." "Why not?" "I didn't bring any tissues with me." I immediately pulled a pack of tissues out of my pocket and handed them over. She was completely dazed for a second. "Since when did you start carrying tissues around?" "Everywhere you go." "Since your 3rd day living here." Clutching the tissue, she let all her emotions flood out right there in the 5th floor hallway. People walking past kept glancing over at her. I stepped in front of her to block their view, pretending to look down at my phone. In my arms, Nian Gao reached out a tiny paw, gently tapping her hair. From that moment on, the dynamic between us quietly shifted. She didn't officially jump back into being my girlfriend right away. Everything about the future was still up in the air. She'd sit on my balcony wrapped in a blanket, with Nian Zhao sound asleep on her lap. I couldn't predict what would happen either. What if the transplant doesn't work out? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. There's always a way. But what if I actually don't make it? So, sinks. Stop constantly playing out the worst-case scenarios. I need to be mentally prepared. You're actively cooperating with the treatment now, so you've already escaped the worst of it. After a brief silence, she spoke up. My mom found out about my illness. She's been calling every day, trying to get me to go back home to recover. Are you planning on going back? No. The medical care here is exactly what I need. Leaving would completely disrupt my treatment. I'll talk to your mom and handle it. She looked at me with pure shock. And what exact capacity are you going to use to talk to her? As your supportive neighbor, obviously. Gu Qing, be serious. Well, what capacity do you want me to have? She went totally quiet, burying her face deep into the soft blanket. The sudden movement startled the cat, and Nian Zhao leapt directly onto my lap. You already know, she mumbled, her voice totally muffled. I couldn't really hear her clearly. I said, it's completely up to you. She snapped her head up, blushing all the way to the tips of her ears, staring at the beautiful glow on her face, which was a stark contrast to her usual sickly pale look. She looked absolutely breathtaking. Shu Jixia. What? Let's get back together. Why didn't you say this at the hospital earlier? The hospital felt way too formal. I wanted to lay my heart out to you at home. But this is your apartment, not mine. Well, proposing back at your place didn't feel right either. And doing it in the hallway is even worse. Then where exactly is your heart supposed to be laid out? She thought about it for a few seconds, then pointed right at the balcony divider. Right there, a 1-2 meter tall barrier, separating two worlds, easily crossed with just a single step. I walked right up to her. Shu Jixia, let's give us another shot. She looked up at me, her eyes clear and sparkling. I have a few conditions. Lay them on me. First, you are banned from doing medical screenings behind my back. Didn't you literally do the exact same thing when you got sick? Listen to my conditions first. Are you agreeing or not? Yes, I agree. Keep going. Second, don't you dare coddle or pity me just because I'm sick. I don't need any special treatment. Understood. You've always been a stubborn fighter. She smiled and leaned into me slightly. Third, you still have more. She bit her lip gently. If my body completely gives out one day, that is not going to happen. Let me finish first. I'm not listening. If you persist, I'll go back to my apartment and never come over again. She gave me a playful glare, but immediately burst into a smile. Fine, the third condition is officially cancelled. A gentle night breeze swept past, sending her hair dancing in the wind. Softly brushing against my jawline, Nian Gao slithered through the pet door, pacing back and forth around our feet, before plopping down right in the middle of the divider, looking back and forth at both of us. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. Her skin was a bit cooler than normal, and her lips were slightly chilly, but she was standing right in front of me, real and alive. Our quiet, cozy days began to flow peacefully. I cooked every single day, while she stayed on top of her meds and recovery, and I accompanied her to every weekly checkup. In her free time, she'd help tidy up my place. The cat was constantly traveling between our two homes, wearing down the edges of the little pet door, until they were completely smooth. On day 35, her hemoglobin shot up to 82. By day 42, it hit 89. On day 56, it steadily climbed to 93. Dr. Zhou told us her recovery was looking incredibly promising. There was no need for an immediate transplant anymore. Shu Jixia was so thrilled she bought a roast chicken, sharing the delicious feast with Nian Zhao. Honestly, the cat enjoyed it the absolute most. But the peaceful times didn't last forever. On the night of day 63, a sudden sound shattered the silence. The noise came from next door. I bolted out the door, completely barefoot, hammering on her door with all my might. Shu Jixia, are you okay? There was absolute silence from inside. Panic overtaking me, I kicked the door open and burst in. She was collapsed on the living room floor. Total silence from inside. Panicking, I broke down the door and burst in, only to see her slumped on the living room floor, ghostly pale, with blood pouring from her nose. Nian was right by her side, meowing at me frantically. I rushed over and scooped her up. Her body felt so light and thin, like holding a bundle of empty clothes. "Wake up, Shu Jixia." Her eyelids fluttered slightly, mumbling something incoherently. I couldn't make out what she was saying, so I leaned in closer to ask, "Don't ruin your clothes. The blood will get on it." I quickly carried her to the car. I even ran 2 yellow lights on the way. The harsh, white lights of the ER were blinding. The medical team wheeled her gurney into the treatment room. I could only wait outside, sitting on a plastic chair outside the door. My palms were stained with her blood. 40 minutes later, Dr. Zhao called my phone. Her platelet count dropped drastically. Her body has built up a resistance to the meds. The doctor's tone was incredibly solemn. "We need to get the transplant scheduled ASAP. What's the absolute earliest we can do it?" 2 weeks of preconditioning first. Then, she enters the sterile room for surgery. As the donor, you'll need mobilization shots in advance. I'm ready to cooperate whenever. Are you absolutely sure you're prepared? My mind is made up. Come to the hospital tomorrow to do the paperwork. We'll officially start the process. Hanging up the phone, I leaned against the wall to catch my breath. An elderly man opposite me, clutching prayer beads, was quietly chanting a prayer. Seeing my state, he spoke up gently. "Your family, right? Don't worry too much. My wife has been hospitalized tons of times, and always pulled through." I nodded softly in reply. When Shu Jixia was wheeled out of the ER, her face was still completely pale, but the bleeding had finally stopped. The second she saw me, her first words were about the cat. "How's Nian Zhao doing?" "He's safe and sound in the car. Everything's fine. Your clothes are covered in blood. It's fine. I can just change out of it later." Lying on the hospital bed, she slowly reached out her hand. I immediately gripped it tightly. Her fingertips were still freezing. "Looks like I can't dodge this transplant after all." "Yeah, are you scared?" Deep down, I was definitely terrified. "So," I answered honestly, "a little bit." She gently squeezed my hand back. "I'm pretty anxious too." The next 2 weeks were for pre-op chemo. Shu Jixia was moved into a sterile isolation room, separated by a single layer of glass. We couldn't actually be next to each other. We could only look at each other from afar. The chemo side effects were brutal. She spent 3 days straight vomiting violently, unable to keep a single bite down. Her hair started falling out in massive clumps. Loose strands were scattered all over the bed and pillows. On the 5th day, she just had the nurses buzz off the rest of it. Across the glass, she stroked her smooth, bald head and smiled into the intercom camera. "Do I look super ugly right now?" Her voice through the intercom sounded raspy and dry. "Honestly, it's not the best look." "Wow, you couldn't just say something nice." "Just keeping it real. Where did your emotional intelligence go? You took it with you the day we broke up, and you still haven't returned it." She rolled over and lay down, huffing. A moment later, she hit the intercom buzzer again. "Guqing, I'm right here. How's the cat?" "He's getting pretty chubby. He gained a whole pound. Stop feeding him so many treats. Remember to enforce his diet. Also, go back and get some rest. Don't stay in the hallway all night. Your dark circles are literally worse than mine." But I never left. I stayed on a simple cot in the hallway for the whole 2 weeks. The head nurse joked that I was the most dedicated neighbor ever. I replied calmly, "We're not just neighbors anymore." "Then what are you guys?" I answered with absolute certainty, "We're family, bound to stick together." The preconditioning phase wrapped up smoothly. Her vitals and metrics met all the benchmarks, making her fit for the surgery. Then, it was my turn to donate. I had to get mobilization shots for 5 days straight. My entire body felt incredibly sore and achy, my bones completely tingling. But compared to the agonizing pain she went through, this little bit of suffering was nothing. The stem cell collection took 4 full hours. Lying quietly next to the machine, watching my blood cycle through the tubes to separate the cells, I just stared at the ceiling, trying to keep my emotions steady until it was over. The collection was a total success. The nurses confirmed the cell count was more than enough, packed up the bag and sent it to the isolation ward. I followed them all the way, stopping just outside her room. Through the glass window, the pale yellow stem cells dripped slowly, flowing through the IV line right into her body. From this day forward, my lifeblood would be fully fused with hers. She stared at the bag, then looked over at me outside the window, flashing an OK sign. I raised my hand, giving the same sign back. Nian Gao, whom I had secretly snuck into the hospital, snuggled by my feet, staring blankly through the glass at her. Realizing his owner was right there but unreachable, he let out a tiny whine. Shu Zixia heard him, and waved at the cat through the window. One human and one cat, pressing a palm and a paw against opposite sides of the glass. A thin sheet of glass couldn't block how much they cared. I snapped a photo of that moment. This photo would be my phone wallpaper for a very long time. Once the transplant was done, the biggest hurdle was the rejection reaction. The first 2 weeks were the high-risk window. Fevers, rashes, and diarrhea were all expected possibilities. On the third day post-op, her temperature spiked to 39.5 degrees C. It was all within the expected range. The medical team adjusted her meds immediately. On the 7th day, the fever broke, leaving a mild rash on her skin. By day 10, the rash was completely gone. On day 14, her blood panel results came back on schedule. Her white blood cell count was steadily rising, and her neutrophils were finally showing up. Dr. Zhou held the report, a rare, genuine smile breaking across his face. The graft took perfectly. The bone marrow is up and running normally. Standing outside the ward door, my brain went completely numb. My legs suddenly turned into jelly, and I slumped straight down onto the floor. A nurse nearby rushed over to check on me, but I just shook my head, signaling I was fine. Crouching alone in the long hallway, I covered my face, letting all the pent-up emotions flood out as I sobbed. Shu Zixia saw everything from the other side of the glass, and immediately hit the intercom button. Everything's great. Why are you crying all of a sudden? I'm not crying. Your face is totally bunched up, and you still won't admit it. Your vision's playing tricks on you. I didn't even cry during the brutal chemo, yet you're the one tearing up. I'm just doing it willingly. She leaned back against her hospital pillows, her eyes crinkling into a soft, tender smile, even though she was incredibly frail and looked completely exhausted. Her smile right then was just as beautiful as ever. The day she got discharged, the weather was absolutely gorgeous. It was late autumn, mid-November. The fall scenery was slowly coming to an end, with ginkgo leaves completely blanketing the roads in gold. Shu Zixia wore a beanie and a mask, sitting safely in a wheelchair. I pushed her slowly out of the inpatient building. As the gentle, warm sun hit her face, she squinted her eyes slightly, taking a deep breath of the fresh outdoor air. The air out here feels absolutely amazing, smelling nothing but disinfectant all day long. Makes you appreciate literally everything else. A chubby Nian Jiao poked his head out from inside my coat, hopped gracefully onto her lap, and started rubbing against her affectionately over and over. She wrapped her arms around the cat, nuzzling her cheek into his fluffy coat. Did you miss me too, Nian Gao? The cat let out a loud, enthusiastic meow. She whispered softly. I've been missing you guys every single day too. I pushed the wheelchair down ginkgo-lined avenue, golden leaves occasionally drifting onto her shoulders and beanie. Nian Gao batted his paws at the falling leaves, whining impatiently whenever he missed. Hey, how long do you think it'll take for my hair to grow back? If all goes well, it should grow out in about 3 months. Rocking a bald head for this long is honestly not a good vibe. I can pick out a few nice wigs for you to wear. Wigs feel super awkward and weird. Then just embrace your current look. She gave me a playful look over her shoulder, and I leaned down to gently tap her forehead against mine. No matter what you look like, you're always gorgeous to me. Wow, you've gotten way better at sweet talking. I learned from the absolute best. You, amid our laughter. She cleared her throat and coughed twice. I immediately stopped walking, asking if she was okay. I just accidentally swallowed some cold air. I'll be fine after a quick second. Walk with me just a bit longer. She held onto the armrests, looking up at the sky. Being trapped in that sterile ward for so long, all I wanted was to sit on the balcony, feel the breeze, watch Nian Gao run around, and feel you quietly watching me from next door. Since when was I spying on you? Your curtains always had a tiny gap, and the light always peeked through. Every time I sat down to read, I could totally feel your eyes on me, so you knew the whole time, and deliberately left your curtains open. Otherwise, how else was I supposed to let you see me? The wheels rolled over the carpet of fallen leaves, making a soft, crisp rustling sound. Remember that third condition. From when we got back together. The third condition, I didn't get to finish. Instinctively, I gripped the wheelchair handles tighter. Back then, you wouldn't let me say it. You still don't need to bring it up now. No, I absolutely have to make this clear. The evening breeze softly blew away her whispered words. She spoke softly. If my body fully recovers down the road, you have to marry me and spend the rest of your life with me. The wheelchair ground to a sudden halt. I stood frozen amidst the sea of yellow leaves. A moment later, I walked around to the front of the wheelchair, bending down to look straight into her eyes. Say that again. Never mind then. I'm serious. Say it one more time. Nope, not repeating it. After a brief standoff, her cheeks flushed red. Raising her voice slightly, she said, I said, you have to marry me. That's my final condition. Do you promise? Niangao let out a timely meow in her arms, as if chiming in, staring at the frail girl before me. I answered solemnly, I promise. After she was discharged, Shuzitsuya moved into my place. I went ahead and literally knocked down the wall between our adjacent apartments, removing the low barrier that separated our balconies. Even though I had to pay the landlord a 30 RMB fine, it was totally worth it for one massive open balcony. From then on, Nianzhao didn't have to squeeze through a tiny pet door anymore. He could roam, completely free, across the entire balcony space. All her medications were organized perfectly, and her schedule was pinned right on the fridge. She needed the oxygen machine less and less, too. Her hair slowly started growing back, coming in as soft, fluffy fuzz. Every day she'd look in the mirror and complain about her look, and our playful banter became our cozy new normal. At her 3-month checkup, her vitals were completely stable. 6 months later, at her follow-up, her blood panel was basically back to a normal level. A year later, during another screening, the doctor officially told us the transplant was a massive success, and she just needed regular follow-ups and rest. That night, we went out for hot pot. While swirling the beef tripe, she still strictly followed her 7-second rule, reminiscing about where that little habit came from. We both laughed, thinking back to the past, and the very first time we shared a hot pot. Now, her figure was finally filling out, her cheeks rosy, and her complexion glowing. Even the old needle marks on her arms had slowly faded away. Looking at the bright, vibrant girl right in front of me, all our past struggles and pain completely melted into pure warmth and peace. 2 years later, on a beautiful autumn day, we threw a simple, intimate wedding. We only invited close family and friends, filling just 2 tables. Our old college friends served as our groomsmen and bridesmaids. Her family was so relieved as they officially trusted her to me. There was no flashy venue or expensive jewelry, just a pair of simple bands as a promise to hold on to each other forever. In the days we spent side by side from then on, our newly combined apartment was filled with warmth and life. A super chubby Nianzhao couldn't even fit through the old pet door anymore. But with the wall gone, nothing could ever stand between us again. A gentle evening breeze carrying the scent of sweet osmanthus swept across the balcony. Her long hair cascaded softly over her shoulder sailed. If we hadn't happened to become neighbors back then, where do you think we'd be right now? Honestly, I can't even imagine. Would you have slowly forgotten about me? Even when I deleted all your contact info, you were still completely locked in my heart. She leaned her head softly onto my shoulder. Time completely smoothed out all our rough patches, leaving nothing but pure, peaceful devotion. 2 people and a cat, chilling together on the terrace, with absolutely nothing blocking us anymore. Through all the years to come, we'll spend the rest of our lives in perfect peace.